18 minutes, guys.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 1st meeting of the Whitehall City Council. For the purpose of considering such matters that may come before us, I'm going to ask everyone to please rise for a moment of silence and remain standing for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore.
Present.
Present. Cantor.
Present.
Peck.
Present.
Morrison.
Present.
Bailey.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Present.
President Grimm.
Present. Next on our agenda, actually the first thing on our agenda this evening is the approval of minutes for September 17, 2019, the agenda and regular meeting.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the September 17th minutes.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Coniston, a second by Mr. Cantor for approval of the September 17th meeting minutes. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
The minutes have been approved. Next on our agenda, we have poll public. If anyone would like to come forward, you will have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Charles Samario, and I live at 650 East 3rd Avenue in Columbus. I'm here tonight representing Independent Energy Consultants, and I'd like to raise the issue of governmental energy aggregation programs for gas and electric. To provide to the City of Whitehall, these programs have been an option in Ohio going on 20 years now, since Ohio was deregulated back around the year 2000. And our firm was one of the first to enter this space, having designed and implemented some of the very first programs in the state. To date, we've saved the residents and small businesses of the communities that we serve over $200 million through these programs. And we're confident that in the first year alone with an electric program, we could save the City of Whitehall residents and small businesses about $175,000. And we think that's really a conservative estimate. And that's just electric, that's not including natural gas. In addition to keeping money in the pockets of your residents, we can also broker civic donations through suppliers. That can be a source of revenue for the city and would go towards the city's general fund. So the whole idea is to provide budget certainty for your residents as well as savings, keeping money in their pockets, helping bolster the local economy, while at the same time providing a source of revenue for the city.
Is this the kind that you have to go put it on the ballot and residents have to vote for it, and then everybody, no matter what, they have to buy it, correct?
So I am speaking about the one that you would put on the ballot, but it isn't no matter what. So the residents would say, yes, we'd like our city to provide this program to us, and then they're given multiple opportunities to get out of the program if they don't want to be included. There's a 21-day opt-out period where there's no.
Well, I just think, personally, I've had many people come and talk to me about this, and I never wanted to do it because I think it sticks those people who don't understand what's going on, and it sticks them with maybe a supplier that they don't want to be in. And I just wonder why we should use our political capital to basically force a certain energy supplier on our residents.
So it's not forcing anything. The whole idea is you're aggregating, so you get bulk bargaining power and you get a rate lower than what residents would be able to get on their own. So,
But that rate is guaranteed for a certain period of time?
yes,
And so if the actual rate would be lower,
if the.
you could in
utilities-
fact be paying a higher,
If during the period of the contract, the utilities rate goes below the program rate, yeah,
yeah.
that's what would happen. But the way we structure programs is with 0 early termination fees. So if a customer wants to get out and get back on a utility supplier, go with a different supplier, they are able to get out free of charge at any time for any reason.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe everyone who lives in the city of Whitehall or Columbus or anywhere in the state of Ohio already has these options available to them.
Right, and so those options are made on an individual basis, where the suppliers have a much higher acquisition cost, so the rates that they're offered are going to be higher than the program rate. Additionally, we do this under no obligation, so if you hired us to do it and it passed on the ballot, we could bring you the rates, and if you don't think that they're going to hold water against, what's available on the Apples to Apples website, those are the offers that everyone can get, or versus the utilities rate, you wouldn't have to accept the offer. So we would have done a whole lot of work on our end, and you could walk away and just kind of say, well, thanks for trying, but no thanks. But like I said, we've saved over $200 million for the communities that we serve through these programs, and we're confident that we can save for Whitehall as well.
What's the typical length of a contract?
It depends on market conditions. Right now, it's backwardated, where the further out the pricing goes, the lower the cost. So typically, right now, people are getting into 36-month contracts. And that it's 3 years because it's tied to the capacity markets. And those rates are fixed 3 years in advance, so we know exactly what those are. And there's future contracts for 3-year energy pricing as well.
You said communities, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna ask, what communities are you in?
Yeah,
A lot of Northeast Ohio communities. A big one is the city of Canton that we serve. We do Canfield Township and Austintown Township. Dozens of communities. I can provide you a more detailed list if you'd like.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? All right, well, thank you for the information.
Thank you. And if you'd like to have me come in for a meeting that's not a public meeting, a sit-down meeting, I'd be happy to.
You would probably, if you wanted to, probably have to meet with city administration,
Okay.
but that's only if we ask you.
Okay.
Okay.
One other point, if I may, is there's also the option to do an opt-in program where it wouldn't even have to go to ballot, but it would be a program that the city offers to its residents. There would still be some bulk bargaining power. It definitely wouldn't be as big and powerful as an opt-out program. But that's a way, if you're concerned about automatically aggregating someone, that type of program wouldn't do that. They'd have to proactively choose to be a part of the program.
I just believe in freedom of choice.
Right.
I
And
mean,
that's, if it goes to the ballot and it's, approved at the ballot, they're asking, it's a positive ask of the city to offer the program. So it's not like it's being shoved down their throat, it's something that,
well, unless somebody votes no, and then it is, and being shoved down the throat, right? Okay.
All right, well, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
thank you much.
All right, so, is there anyone else who would like to come forward for poll public?
Anybody on this side?
Well then, seeing no one, we will move on with our standing committee reports. We'll begin with Administration and Financial Management, Chairperson Bailey.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Administration Financial Management did meet last Tuesday. Our minutes are on file. We have several items to be introduced tonight, and we will consider those, and we will meet again next Tuesday sometime after 6:30.
All right, thank you, sir. Community and Elder Advocacy, Chairperson Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community and Elder Advocacy met last week. We have one piece of legislation for today for consideration, and we will meet again next Tuesday at about 6:30.
All right, thank you. Community Standards and Enforcement, Chairperson Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community Standards and Enforcement met last week. Minutes are on file. We'll meet again next Tuesday sometime after 6:30.
All right, thank you, sir. Economic Development, Chairperson Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Economic Development also met last Tuesday. Our minutes are on file, and we'll meet again next Tuesday sometime after 6:30 in the back.
Thank you, sir. Infrastructure Maintenance and Services, Chairperson Heck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Infrastructure, Maintenance, and Services met last Tuesday. We have no pending drafts of legislation. Our minutes are on file, and we will meet next Tuesday sometime after 6:30 in the back.
All right, thank you. Public Safety, Chairperson Coniston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Safety met last week. Our minutes are on file, and we'll meet again in the back on Tuesday sometime after 6:30.
All right, thank you. And finally, we come to Parks and Recreation, Chairperson Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parks and Recreation met last week. Our minutes are on file. We're going to meet again in the back next week after 6:30. We have no drafts tonight, but I would encourage anybody that's viewing this meeting that we have the mural over on the Armory on Country Club that is really nice to swing by and look at it. I think you'll be very much surprised. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. That concludes our standing committee reports. We'll move on to our officials' reports, and we'll begin with our mayor, Ms. Kim Maggard.
Good evening. If you didn't make it to the September social last night, I'd just like to remind you that the city is taking suggestions for the type of public art that you would like to see in our city, whether it's interactive or you know, standalone art or whatever. Please give your comments to the city. You can put it on the city's Facebook page, and I would just want to invite everyone to do that if they so desire. Also, I would like passage of 116-2019. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have our city attorney, Mr. Michael Bivens.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. First of all, Mayor, that was a great event last night. Thank you for the invitation. I think it went very well. It was had positive impact for the city, and I got a lot of comments personally about it, so good job last night. For the month of September, the city attorney's office through the mayor's court successfully prosecuted 245 cases. Out of those 245 cases, 28 of them were Whitehall residents, so that's 11%. It is important to mention, since we are in the month of October, that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you, Councilmember Heck, for wearing the purple today. In representation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, thank you, administration, for putting up the purple flags all along Yearland Road. Those flags are representative of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Since taking office in 2016, my office has successfully helped or at least prosecuted 615 domestic violence cases. I said help in the beginning because out of those 615 cases, there were more than likely 615 or more victims. And mind you, the role of our office has changed from just being, instead of being just victim advocates, we are victim empowerers. And so as a result of that, we are putting on this Saturday with the community partner Restore, our annual swap meet. We're not calling it a for domestic violence victims swap meet because we don't want to stigmatize anyone that's going through that situation, but we like to thank every member of council that's made donations, as well as members of administration and throughout the city that have made donations. In fact, our city auditor made a very generous donation himself towards this effort. Domestic violence is every one of our problems. Just so that you know, the recent homicide that occurred on Hamilton Road started off as a domestic violence case. Incidentally, it was the victim who ultimately became the murderer, but it affected the family of the person that was involved in domestic violence, and that bled over into something that has changed everyone's life. And so to the extent that you see something, say something. We are our brother's keeper, we are each other's neighbors, and the best thing that you can do is err on the side of caution, contact Whitehall Police Department, emergency or non-emergency number. If you hear something see something, say something. And that's all from the city attorney's office.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have our city auditor, Mr. Dan Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no official report tonight, although I would like to ask for favorable consideration on ordinance 104, ordinance 114 and 115, and resolution 48. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our treasurer, Mr. Steve Quinzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no official report for tonight, but would like to let you know that we just came onto Facebook during Attorney Devon's report.
What's that?
We're live.
Oh. Oh, okay. I heard part of it, but you tailed off at the end and I couldn't hear you. All right. Well, the following officials' reports have been filed in the council office since our last meeting. We have the treasurer's investment report for August 2019, the treasurer's activity by fund report for August 2019, along with the treasurer's fund reconciliation report for August 2019. Under communications, petitions, and claims, we do have the minutes for the September 5th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. We've also received the agenda for the October 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. Those are all the communications, petitions, and claims. That brings us to our verification of copies. Ms. Aug, please call the roll on whether each member of council is given a copy of each item of legislation listed on the agenda prior to the meeting, and including any add-on legislation.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All righty. Well, that brings us to our legislative issues and resolutions for the evening. We'll begin with third readings. We have, first up, we have ordinance 104, 2019. It's making a fund transfer of $442,093.53 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the debt service fund, making a supplemental appropriation of $55,326.11 from the debt service fund to the debt service account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 104, 2019, move for its adoption.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rodriguez for introduction and adoption of ordinance 104, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ordinance 104, 2019 has been adopted. It's our only item under third reading, so we'll move to our second readings, of which there is no legislation this evening for second reading. So we will move on to our first reading items. We begin with ordinance 114, 2019, approving and making a supplemental appropriation of $374,918.06 from unappropriated monies in the Health Insurance Trust Fund to the Health Insurance Trust Fund, the expense account, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 114, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Bailey and second by Mr. Rodriguez for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 114, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 114, 2019.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez for adoption of ordinance 114, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ordinance 114, 2019 has been adopted. Next up, we have ordinance 115, 2019. It's authorizing the creation of the Franklin County Board of Health Grant Fund, advancing $3,950 from previously unappropriated monies in the general fund to the Franklin County Board of Health Grant Fund, making an appropriation of $3,950 from the Franklin County Board of Health Grant Fund to the Franklin County Board of Health Grant Fund expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 115, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey, a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 115, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 115, 2019.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison for adoption of ordinance 115, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ordinance 115, 2019 has been adopted. Next up, we have ordinance 116, 2019, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Public Entities Pool of Ohio and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance number 116-2019 and move for the suspension of all the rules, please.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Cantor and a second by Ms. Elmore for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 116, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 116, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move for adopt, please.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cantor, second by Ms. Elmore for adoption of ordinance 116, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ordinance 116, 2019 has been adopted. Next up, we have Resolution 47, 2019, resolving to approve then and now certificates and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce resolution 47, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rodriguez for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 47, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 47, 2019.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez for adoption of Resolution 47, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes. Resolution 47, 2019 has been adopted. Next up, we have Resolution 48, 2019. It's authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Franklin County Department of Job and Family Services for the purpose of providing services for temporary assistance to needy families and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 48, 2019, and move for the suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Elmore and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 48, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 48, 2019.
Mr. President, move for adoption.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Elmore and a second by Ms. Heck for adoption of Resolution 48, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Resolution 48, 2019 has been adopted. It's our last item of legislation on the agenda this evening. That brings us to our second opportunity for poll public. If anyone would like to come forward, you'll have up to 3 minutes. Seeing, I don't think you really want. Seeing no one, we'll move on to Community Date Board. Who would like to start us off this evening?
I have one thing. The White House Building Alumni Association will be having their casino night at the VFW. So it's a fundraiser for our scholarship fund. It's October the 12th at 6:30 at the VFW.
Who else has something?
October the 12th, from 9 to 11:30 at John Bishop Park is the trick or treat and the 5K from Employment for Seniors. And the first 50 kids who register will receive trick or treat bag. So we are encouraging the kids to come out.
What's the age group on that for the children?
You're too old.
Anybody?
He is
I
not.
can look that up.
There is,
Yeah.
my granddaughter is running and she's 18 months old. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
That's cute.
Cool.
Ages 10 and under.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Lori.
Who else has something for Community Date?
Saturday, October 26th is the Halloween, WCCA Halloween Walk over at Etna Road Elementary School at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Are we judging Halloween decorations this year?
Here we are.
When is that?
That'll be the week before.
You cooking with that day?
So like the 24th, or the whole week before?
The whole week.
Okay. All right, who else has something for Community Day Board?
Halloween, 31st.
All right,
Is that what you asked?
what do you have there, Wes?
Excuse me?
What do you have?
She was asking me a question.
Oh, I thought you had
Halloween
something
trick or
for
treaters,
Community
and I
Day
said
Board.
it's
Kind of like being in school.
October 31st is trick or treat from 6 to 8.
You want to share that with everyone?
Oh, Latino night. Does anybody know what night that is, Chris?
What? What
At the high
night?
school Latino night? I
At the
think
high
it's
school.
sometime next week.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Cinco de Mayo.
thank you. Did you get that?
No.
All right,
She shook her head no.
who else has something?
You don't look Irish.
Let's move on to poll council. We'll begin with Ms. Elmore.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for those that are viewing. Also, I want to say, Mayor, the social event was wonderfully attended. I think that was probably one of the highest attendances
yeah.
that we've had.
It's
And
very, very busy.
there were a lot of new people that were
Yes.
there, and I've invited them to come and introduce themselves to council, so
Great.
they should be coming in
I
shortly.
hope y'all come.
Right, come on in.
Liven things up.
We'll find room.
Yes, we will find room.
We'll save you a seat.
And also, just to stress again how important it is to register to vote. The deadline is October the 7th, October the 7th. And we're just encouraging everybody to register to vote. The other thing is for the Domestic Violence Month. Sorry I didn't have my purple on, but I won't miss it again. It does affect all families, down the line and extended families. So we need to just love our neighbors and as ourselves and treat everybody with respect. And that is all I have, Mr. President. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Ms. Coniston?
I'd like to thank you all for viewing. I'm sorry that I missed the September social yesterday. It was Rosh Hashanah.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Lashana Tova, to all our Jewish constituents that are watching. And looking forward to all the upcoming events for fall, if it ever turns something less than 90 degrees. There we
Get
go.
ready.
Thursday.
Be careful
well,
what you
Friday's
wish for. Mr. Canner?
Thank you, Mr. President, and to Councilperson Constant, happy belated.
Thank you.
No problem. And if you missed what I said earlier, if you go by on Country Club by the old Armory, you can see the mural that's being painted on the Armory. It looks really, really, really nice. And the more that he paints, the better it looks. He's actually filling things in with people and basketball court, splash pad. So it's looking very, very nice. Also, don't forget, I know we have the domestic violence. It's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and this hits quite quite hard sometimes. So keep that in your prayers for people. And actually, that's all I have tonight, Mr. President. Thank you.
All righty, Ms. Heck.
Thank you for everyone viewing at home. Echo what Lori and others have said, it was definitely a great event, so it was so nice to see so many people come out yesterday. And I hope to see many people at the Saturday event for domestic violence. That's all.
Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for everyone watching, and everybody have a good week. That's all I got.
Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really have nothing further to share other than what everybody's already talked about.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Same here. Thank you, Mr. President. Have a good evening.
All righty. Well, I want to thank everyone who attended the meeting this evening, and also those that are viewing at home. We have no other official business. I will entertain a motion for adjournment, if so moved.
Mr. President, move to adjourn.
I did too.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck. For adjournment, Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Hope to see you all at our next meeting. Thank you.
I've been looking at you.
Thank you.